Hello guys, welcome to Hollywood Recapped. Today I'm going to explain the movie in time released in the year 2011. Movie starts with a prologue describing the new world far in the future. The concept of paper money has become extinct and instead time has become the new form of currency. The rich have eons worth of time and have become immortal while the poor struggle daily to add a few more days to their lives. In this new world, when humans are born they have 26 years to live and then they stop aging after 25. As a result there are no old people. People have to work hard from keeping themselves from dying. They have to earn more time as one would earn money. A timer is set in everyone's forearm that shows the days they have left. Segregation between the rich and poor have gone very high. The powerful people increase the price of basic daily goods so they can collect more time from the poor who work hard each day to add few more hours to their lives. The main character of the movie Will belongs to the struggling poor population of the country and he lives in the slums with his 50-year-old mother who has only 3 days left to live. Will himself only has a merely 24 hours left. That means if he doesn't earn more time in a day he will have to die. Rachel plans to work for the next 2 days so that she can earn enough to pay off their loan. And when she returns she will hardly have any time left so she wants Will to be at the bus stand to lend her some time. On his way to work Will encounters a little girl named Maya and she asks Will a minute for charity. Will gives her 5 minutes instead of 1. Will works in a factory that manufactures time storing devices. After working hard for the entire day he gets paid less than what he used to get. When he asks the distributor, he claims that the rich have increased the daily quota of work and Will didn't reach his quota. Disheartened by this Will heads to a local bar where he meets his alcoholic friend Borl. Borl asks him to get as many drinks as he wants because a rich guy named Henry is buying drinks for everyone there. People say he has a century's worth of time on his wrist left. Will is confused as to why a person like Henry would come to a bar in the slums and he also notices some known criminals keeping eye on Henry presumably to rob him. He goes and alert him, but the guy refuses to leave. Minutes later a group of gangsters called the Minutemen threaten everyone to leave except for Henry. Will realizes that Henry is about to get robbed. While everyone else quickly leaves the place he stays there to keep an eye on them. The leader of the Minutemen Fortis asks one of his minion to attack Henry, who is in the washroom. But then Will come and knocks out the man. After this, he flees with a drunk Henry who hardly realizes what is going on. These robbers follow them to a certain point till these two disappear. Meanwhile, Henry and Will hide in an abandoned building. Henry reveals that he is 105 years old and after living for so long he has had enough of life and doesn't wish to live anymore. Hence, he irrationally came to the bar spend his left time. Will is baffled by the irony that he struggles every day for what Henry has but doesn't want it. Henry then reveals that there is enough time for everyone in the world to live. But the rich and powerful people take them all for their own greed. Will is shocked and frustrated by the revelation but can't do anything about it. The following morning Henry wakes up beside a sleeping Will. He transfers all of his time to Will leaving himself with just 5 minutes. A while later Will wakes up and is beyond shocked to see over a century worth of time on his wrist. He then sees Henry sitting on a nearby bridge. As Henry's time ends he jumps into the river. Then Will meets Borl and tells him everything that happened with Henry and him. He also gives some of his time to Borl so that he may not have to struggle as much with all the time in the world. Will desires to bring equality and remove the huge time gap between the rich and the poor. And after Will leaves the place, Borl goes to a bar to drink. In the next scene we see Rachel who has been working hard for the past 2 days finally pays off her loan and goes to the bus stop. However, she realizes that she doesn't have enough time to ride the bus. She starts to run back home in order to reach Will on time. But as soon as she meets Will, she falls dead in Will's arms. He cries mourning his mother's death that could have been prevented by a few seconds. The next day the police of the town known as the Timekeepers discover Henry's body in the river. When they see that he has run out of time they assume that he had been robbed. The senior timekeeper Raymond and his junior Jaeger investigate the case. In the meantime, Will buys himself a luxury car and designer clothes. He then drives to a posh neighborhood called the New Greenwich across the time zone border. He is mesmerized by the place's beauty. When Will had less time he was used to run everywhere, he does the same in the new town. But realizes that the people around him walk slowly. At night he stays at a lavish hotel and wakes up in an expensive suit. For the first time he has had a gourmet breakfast. After paying for the meal, he tips the waitress a week. She says that he does everything a little too quickly compared to their normal customers. Meanwhile, the timekeepers find footage of Will and Henry together before his death. They gather more details about him and Raymond realizes that he knows Will's father. Now, back in New Greenwich, Will enters a casino to gamble for the first time. A billionaire named Felipe Weiss also happens to be at the table. He and Will play against each other. Will wins the first few rounds. However, Felipe still has eons of time left. After winning more rounds against a billionaire, Will's lifetime amounts to over 2 centuries. As the table chats, Felipe talks about the gap between the poor and the rich and says that the gap is natural. So enraged, Will bids all of his time for the next round, leaving him with only 30 seconds. The table holds their breaths for the result and is left speechless when Will wins yet again, earning a millennium worth of time. Felipe is impressed by Will's personality. He notices Will eyeing on his daughter Sylvia and introduces her to him. Felipe also invites Will to a party at his mansion. Will buys a new car and drives to Felipe's mansion. He doesn't know anyone there and simply wanders around. A while later, Sylvia approaches him and starts a conversation while they dance and talk about various things. Sylvia tells him that she feels that her life is meaningless because she has no goals or aspirations. And they decide to ditch the party and go outside to the nearby beach. After swimming for some time, they decide to return to her mansion and are surprised to see the timekeepers waiting for Will. Raymond takes Will to a private room where Will truthfully revels them how he acquired over a millennium's worth of time. But Raymond doesn't believe his story and he confiscates most of Will's time. He arrests Will. While being taken away, he skillfully attacks the timekeepers and takes Sylvia as hostage. The two get inside his car and drive away. While being followed by the timekeepers, they at last manage to escape, hiding under a bridge. Then the next morning they get into a car crash while driving on the highway. The gangster Fortis and his group finds them in the crash site and steals Sylvia's time, leaving her with only 30 minutes of life. When they wake up, Will lends her a few minutes so that they can run to Borrell and ask him for a day or two. But when they reach there, Will is informed of his friend's death that was caused by alcohol poisoning. Then two of them sell Sylvia's earrings to a pawn shop for an extra 2 days. After that, Will gets on a call with Raymond and asks for 1,000 years as ransom to be distributed among everyone in his city in turn for Sylvia. At night, he and Sylvia stay at his apartment and Will tells her about his mother who died recently and about his father who gambled time and shared his earnings with the people who needed it. The two get to understand each other a lot. The next morning we see Felipe has still not kept his end of the deal. Sylvia always knew that her father is a cruel man, but his greed surprises her when Felipe doesn't provide the ransom. Will decides to let Sylvia go and he brings her to a telephone booth. He gives her a gun as a farewell gift and they kiss before going their separate ways. Sylvia turns around and calls her father while Will walks the other way. But she suddenly notices that Raymond is approaching to Will and shoots the timekeeper to save him. Before running away, Will gives Raymond some of his time to save his life. After that, the couple takes the police car and drives away. The news makes the television and is broadcasted everywhere. On being asked why she saved Will, Sylvia says that she doesn't want to go back to her boring life. Meantime, Felipe is in his office with his partners and they know that if he pays the required ransom to the people, the rich will then stop making time because the poor won't need them anymore. Felipe is torn between his daughter's life and his business. But he chooses his business and assures his partners that he won't pay the ransom. In next scene we see Will and Sylvia are ready to risk it all to give people what they want. They rob a time loaning bank and distribute the time devices among the poor. Meanwhile, Fortis sees a billboard with Will and Sylvia's picture that promises a reward of 10 years if they are captured and handed. At night, Will and Sylvia are in their hotel room when they are raided by the timekeepers. They somehow manage to escape through the window and get in a chase with Raymond. During a shootout, they board a running bus and escape. At the same time, Fortis finds out where the two are staying and goes to catch them. To give Will a fair chance, Fortis challenges him for a strong arm match. Victory seems to fall on Fortis's side at first. But Will turns the game around. After that, he attacks the thugs and kills them all skillfully. He then transfers all of Fortis's time to himself and kills him. Later we see Will and Sylvia are on the rooftop from where they notice the prices of goods going up. It turns out that, because of their heist, the rich are raising the price to increase the gap between the poor and the rich is maintained. They both realize that a little heist like that won't make a difference, only a million years will. The next day, Felipe is going somewhere with his bodyguards and Sylvia distracts them. With this, Will takes the opportunity to take Felipe hostage. They bring him to his office, where he has a time-storing device with a million years in it. Here Felipe still tries to invalidate the feelings of poor and struggling people. Will almost shoots him. He says that immortality is not worth the life of a single individual. As the both leaves with the device, the timekeeper's vehicles barricade the road. The couple comes out successfully from the shootout in chaos unharmed. They arrive at the town, while still being followed by Raymond. Will gets out of the car and hands the time-storing device to Maya. He says her to distribute the time to everyone and sends her away. The two get into a car and the chase continues. They're caught when their car crashes in the middle of the road. Before arresting them, Raymond says that he worked hard to escape poverty, but he thinks that the gap between the rich and the poor has to be maintained for society to run smoothly. Unexpectedly Raymond's time goes up and he dies on the spot. Only with few seconds of life left they run towards Raymond's car and transfer time for one more day. Now, next we see, people from the town cross the borders to get to New Greenwich looking for more facilities. Both Sylvia and Will are in front of a time bank and are prepared for their next heist. The movie ends here. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe if you like the video. It helps the channel a lot.